Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to episode 118 of Small Business War Stories. And we are on the road again on the Big Easy in New Orleans, Louisiana. And today I had the pleasure to sit down with Jane and Bob, who are the part owners and co-founders of a liquor store, a wine store called Krewe wine store. And it's not just like any other wine store or liquor store you've ever been to. It's a very special place. It's soaked in New Orleans history. And also, both Jane and Bob are really involved with the community, the local music community. They have an amazing Steinway piano they're going to tell us all about in the episode. And they host these events, bringing great New Orleans musicians to play. They actually have the piano that used to be the centerpiece for New Orleans Jazz Fest, which was actually going on during the weekend that I got to meet them. So it's a great episode, and don't forget to go check us out at smallbusinesswarstories.com and reach out. Let us know if you have ideas for guests and people that we should talk to. We do most of our shows in person. We'd love to see if it fits our schedule. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode, Small Business War Stories 118 with Jane and Bob of Krewe Wine Store in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we are live here in beautiful New Orleans, Louisiana. And today I have the pleasure and honor to sit down with Jane Cooper and Bob Heaps. So yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to be here. It's a very festive time here in New Orleans. It's Jazz Fest, the weekend one of Jazz Fest. And you are here very close to the epicenter of a lot of the nightlife in New Orleans and Frenchmen St. And you have a very unique shop. I'll let you talk about it, but I want to hear, what was the inspiration to start this shop?
Well, the starting of the shop was my initiative. I like to drink wine. Whenever you drink wine, you seem to have a glass in your hand and you get to have a nice conversation with people. So it's just a fun time, a good time. I've never been shy. I like meeting people. I like talking to people. So the opening of the store was really on me.
Okay.
The creating of the destination that the store has become was really on Janie and to some degree Carla, as they developed the vision of what they wanted the store, or the life they wanted the store to lead. So that's really the background for it.
Well, there's really a little bit more to the story than that.
There we go. Now it comes up.
Because I had a healthcare company that I had started here in New Orleans in 2001, and Katrina happened in 2005, and the entire city was shut down. Really, there was no way of knowing when the city would be back. There was no water, there was no electricity. It was 95 degrees. Everything was in disarray. So I made the decision to move my healthcare company to Milwaukee. I had investors there, I had customers there, and I was looking to grow my business. Employers paid for our services, and there was a company called Briggs & Stratton that was interested in buying my advocacy services. Their benefit broker was a guy named Bob Heaps. I went and called on Bob to try to get his client, and I got the client, I got the guy. And not long after that, he decides that he wants to open a wine store. And I'm commuting back and forth from New Orleans to Milwaukee, but we're pretty much living in Milwaukee. And I said, you know what, if this is going to work anywhere, it's got to be in New Orleans. And thus began our journey to find this fabulous location that is so reflective of what we wanted our store to be.
Okay.
But we had no experience in retail. We had no experience in selling wine. So
wow.
From those conversations, of course, over wine, to the store we are sitting in today has been quite a journey.
So that's a big leap of faith. Let's talk a little bit about, well, first of all, the location. Was that the first thing that you found when you decided that you were going to do this?
It was the first thing we looked for.
Yeah.
And that was a journey unto itself.
I bet. Tell me more about that.
We wanted to be in the French Quarter.
Okay.
However, you can't. The city does not allow it. They would not give stores like ours a license to sell spirits and alcohol. And quite honestly, I understand that.
Why is that? I mean, there's no shortage of alcohol purveyors in the French Quarter.
Exactly. And how do you control them? You don't grant any more licenses. And that's how you go about it. You can have bars, you can have food, you can have wine with food, spirits with food, but as far as liquor stores go, wine stores go, that only sell that alone, no. There's a moratorium, and nobody sees that moratorium being lifted anytime soon.
Interesting.
So if you wanted to have a wine store in the French Quarter, you would end up acquiring an existing store. That's the only way you could get one. So we decided, okay, well, if we can't be in the quarter, let's see how close we can get to the quarter. And quite honestly, the only individual who, during this time frame of the business, was making any money was the architect, because this was actually our fourth location. And every time we find a location, we go, "Do you think this works? Hey, this might really work. This could really go. Could we do this?" And we'd have the architect come in, and he'd do these little drawings and all these little calculations, and he'd come back to us and go, "Here's my bill." But we didn't get a store. So like I say, this was the fourth place we ended up finding. We came close on number 3, but actually at the closing of the lease, we got up and walked away because it didn't feel right.
That's important. Actually, I've done that a few times in my business life. Tell me more about that. Without whether or not you can go into details, but what hunch did you have, and how did you?
Well, one of the issues, it was in this not too far from here, part of the city, but there was already an established wine bar close by. And one of the things that the city of New Orleans does, and give them credit for it, they require you to go in and talk to the community and say, "Hey, we're coming, we're going to do this, we're going to change the ordinances so we can sell wine and sell spirits, and are you okay with that?"
Right.
And if there's any pushback, the city says, "Okay, we won't do it."
Right, we had to get a zoning change in any location to sell retail wine. So it wasn't just a matter of getting our alcohol license. We had to get the planning commission to approve the space, and we had to get the city council to approve our business.
Sounds complex.
It was very complex.
It was the Bataan Death March.
How long did it take to do that?
Too long, but we found this space completely by chance, because I was looking for furniture for my healthcare company. We went to a local furniture store. We're talking about our troubles in trying to find a space to open a wine store, and it turned out that the owner of the furniture store, Julian, is the owner of this building, along with some other investors, and just casually mentioned that he had a location in the Marigny, that he was looking for a retail place. There's a restaurant next door that had already been committed to the lease, and as soon as I heard about it, I said, this would be perfect. We came over here Labor Day weekend. It was a dirt floor and just a shell, so we had to really see the vision of the store that you see before you.
It's come a long way from there.
Yes, it has. And we signed a lease over Labor Day, and we opened in July, Bastille Day of the following year.
Okay.
But we had to get approvals, and it was very difficult along the way, and literally the last meeting that we could get the city council meeting that we needed to get the approval is when we got it.
Wow.
And we had to have the entire store built out
Before you
ready
got the permit.
before we got the permit.
Oof.
Well,
Yes.
you can't get the permit without a lease and not a building.
That's a huge capital investment up front before you actually know it's going to work.
It's more than a leap of faith.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, simple question about how we got here, but it required not only faith in our business model and our concept and our partners, but in each other, because we were writing a lot of checks, and we had not sold a bottle of wine yet.
Got it. So running in the red for a while to make the dream come true.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. That's commitment. Tell me a little bit more about the location we're in here. So we're a few blocks away from Frenchmen Street and a few blocks away from the Mississippi River.
Right.
Right. So tell me a little bit more about the history of where we are and why location is important, how it's changing, what's happening.
Sure. Well, Bob mentioned we wanted to be in the French Quarter. We actually live in the French Quarter.
Okay.
So for us, this is a very important part of the city. And the Marigny, which is what this is called, it's actually the Faubourg Marigny. Faubourg is French for suburb. The Marigny was part of a plantation that was owned by Bernard Marigny de Mandeville, who was one of the first French settlers in this location.
Mm-hmm.
And his plantation house was literally, you could look out our front door of our shop and you would have seen his plantation home because it was right on the river, the Mississippi River. And as the city began to grow, this was the first area that was settled outside of the French Quarter,
Okay.
the Marigny. And he decided that it was more financially viable to sell off his property and create these new locations for people to own homes rather than do farming. And so that is how this subdivision began.
Okay.
Over the years, it has become industrial and then again residential. But when it was first settled, it was free people of color, it was Creoles, it was French people, it was a very diverse mixture, and that was one of the reasons we wanted to be here. Certainly it has become more gentrified now,
Yeah.
but there is still a lot of authenticity in this part of the city,
Yeah.
and that's what we wanted.
And there's some development going on too, right? So as you walk from Frenchmen Street to here, there's a big plot of land there. What's going on there?
Right, that is actually an old warehouse next block that's going to become a Hampton Inn.
Wow.
Yes.
That's not what I expected you to say, but
Right.
I guess interesting. Okay. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about how the city's changing because so the whole city has on it the imprint of Hurricane Katrina and the catastrophe that happened in 2005, correct?
Right.
And there's a lot of rebuilding, and it brought a lot of people together with a spirit of survival and rebuilding. How has the city evolved and grown after that? And you have because as you continue to go down the river and you get into the Ninth Ward, you have how are people coming together in the city, and what's the spirit of the city been over the last 15 or 14 years since Katrina, and how is what you're doing as a business contributing to building things?
Sure, let me take a stab at that because I moved here in 1985, so
Okay.
I've been here quite some time.
Yeah.
And was here for Katrina, literally was here for Katrina. So, the city has such a history, and the fear of those of us that were here when Katrina happened is that the city would never regain that spirit, that uniqueness, that eccentricity that it has.
Mm-hmm.
The federal government didn't do anything, the state government didn't do anything, the local government did do nothing for the people that had to make this city come back. It was an individual effort of citizens of all races, of all economic conditions that we committed to this city. So I'm very proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm not a native, I feel like this is my city. I love this city like you love a person.
Okay.
So the city has changed in a lot of ways. The demographics are still such that there's a fairly poor population that struggles with housing issues like any major city in this country. But there's also been a lot of commitment by entrepreneurs to this city, and new people coming in that come here and say, wow, this is like no other city in the United States of America.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And so some of the work I do outside of the wine store is with entrepreneurs, helping them find ways to establish and grow businesses here in a whole bunch of different areas. The city has work to do. We have a new mayor who's doing a fabulous job, and I'm very optimistic about the future. Like any city that's unique, we have to balance the money coming in, people coming here because they love the uniqueness of it, and then they come here and they want to change it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for us, this store is as real as you can be, and people come, about 50% of our business is tourists, and the rest is local.
Okay.
And when tourists come in here, they are amazed at the experience and the feel of the store. And so that's important to us.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. What is the feel of the store? And after that, I do want to touch upon some of the things you do in the community. But I mean, it's hard to describe. It's a very, I mean, we have really tall ceilings. We have a mix of new and old architecture and kind of a design ethic that's very inviting. And how do you approach having a wine and spirit store?
Well, before we answer that, I'll ask you, when you walked into the store, what did you feel? What experience did you feel?
It felt welcoming but regal at the same time. So I had that it was a interesting contradiction. It was almost like salted caramel, like it just kind of like it feels very regal, but at the same time it didn't feel stuffy and overpowering and distant, right? Because that's the risk when you have luxury. That the luxury alienates, and I didn't feel that. So I don't know. Does that go along with what you were aiming for?
Exactly. What we decided and what we attempted to achieve is, aside from making the store a destination, or trying to make it a wine store, we wanted to make it a destination. Mm-hmm. Someplace you want to come to. We have clients who come into the store and they look at us and they go, this store is just my happy place. Mm-hmm. I can, no matter how bad of a day I have, I know I can come in here, I can feel good, I can grab a nice bottle of wine and know I can go home.
Yeah.
And let all the tension of the day escape. So we spent hours and hours and hours looking at things, researching things. How do we get that feel? How do we? I mean, we spent hours just trying to define it, and then Janie, being the taskmaster that she is, she would send us out with these little projects and go, okay, show me something that has that feel. Let's pull these things in, and we would, magazine pictures and things, and all having the type of feel that we wanted to have. Okay. The richness of the store, but the comfortableness of the store. We wanted the store to be, here again, and we use this word again and again and again, is authentic. Mm-hmm. All the wood in the store is reclaimed cypress. Okay, it's all made in Louisiana. It's probably, it's really old. Yeah. But we found a man a wonderful carpenter who was able to make all of this stuff for us. This building itself is a warehouse. It was a warehouse built in about the 1890s for textiles. Julian, who we mentioned earlier, who owns this building, they kept the integrity of the building when they renovated it into apartments. And if you look, here's a major door to bring the textiles into a storage area. Well, we keep the door. Mm-hmm. We try to maintain everything that was here from the warehouse.
And you brought things like these doors behind you that are very ornate and about 12 feet tall or so?
Right, we went looking for those at a couple of different antique stores, and we found those doors. You can see Bacchus, the image of Bacchus is in the middle. They're originally from France. So then we built the doorway to this tasting room to accommodate those doors. So could we have gotten just plain wooden doors and put those in there? Sure. Would it have been less expensive? Absolutely. But we wanted this to be, as Bob said, consistent with our vision. And our partners, Carla and Roy, who couldn't be here today, are African American. So, they bring their life experiences. We bring our life experiences. Yeah. The four of us coming together is the most improbable scenario you can even imagine.
How'd you all meet?
Well, originally, Carla and I were very good friends. Okay. And then as Bob's dream of the wine store started to become a reality, they were interested in being part of the crew. That's what we call ourselves, the crew, Krewe.
Yeah, what's with the spelling? Is there something to that?
Oh, yeah.
In New Orleans, there are 80 to 100 to 110 crews. These are basically clubs. Mm-hmm. But it is the crews of New Orleans and the surrounding areas that put on Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is not a city event. It is a club event. And for really a week out of the year, grown men and grown women get to act like children and have fun and throw beads and go on rides and just have a good time.
Yeah.
And that is Mardi Gras. I mean, there's a perception that Mardi Gras may be something else, and that could be Bourbon Street, but that's just a small part of it.
Right.
Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
And it's not Mardi Gras is not just one day. It's like it's a long.
It's a 2-week period.
Yeah, it's a 2-week period, and you
Yeah.
have all these celebrations and floats
Right.
and all.
You have
that.
parade after parade after parade after parade. You know, for that week, schools are closed, mail doesn't get delivered. I mean, you know, it's carnival time.
So the name of the shop then is a nod to that, the structure of the clubs.
Right, and the French wines, the nice wines, Premier Cru, CRU,
Right.
that's the play on words, and this was Bob's idea. Or, we each have wine store names. His wine store name is Roberto.
There you go.
So that was his idea. I
yeah.
mean, that's the biggest thing when you start a business. What
Yeah.
are we going to call it? And we wanted something that was, again, reflective of New Orleans,
Yeah.
a little funny, a little humorous.
So it's like a play on words.
Right.
It's
right.
exactly
There you
it.
go.
Yeah,
Play on
the
words.
locals get it. Not all the tourists get it, but they do after we explain it to them.
Sounds good.
You
Sounds
know,
good.
so as an example,
Yeah.
having fun. When you go take your bottle of wine and go to check out,
Yeah.
there's a countertop. Well, the countertop was made of cork flooring. Okay, I mean, what else would you use in a wine store other than cork?
There you go.
So these are just little things we throw out and we play
Sure.
with that just adds a deeper, rich color to the store.
Okay.
You know, that poster, and we're referencing a 3x5 foot poster. There are 3 of them in the store.
Original French wine posters.
From 1927 to 1929.
Yeah, I was going to say it looks like early 20th century.
Right. And I can assure you the posters were cheap. The frames were expensive.
It's
But could we have done something else? Probably.
yeah. These are
But-
not small posters. Probably some of the largest ones I've ever seen.
Right. But it's what gives the store character.
But also, I think a big part of it too is what you personally do, right? So before you knew who we were, or that you would be on this podcast, we came in here because we were on our way to visit our good friends from Goodwood NOLA, we're actually doing a follow up. They were part of the early episodes of the podcast a couple of years ago, and we're doing a follow up episode about how their business is growing. We were heading over there to a music jam session last night. And we wanted to bring a bottle of bourbon or rye, and you took the time and the care to explain to us, what you had, and introduce us to something new and different that we hadn't tried before. And you took the care to understand what we were looking for, because I presume that there are many different flavors of drinker or person who comes here looking for different things. Mm-hmm. And you have to kind of learn how to read people and figure out where to steer them, right?
And that works in part because we both made our careers are really as salespeople. Mm-hmm. So when you're a salesperson, no matter what you're selling, you're only successful if you can understand how the customer is going to buy.
Sure.
So that helps us here. Although we both sell differently, but
how do you guys both sell? I want to hear about that.
Well, no, I wouldn't. Janie, in her sales approach, tends to be a little more forceful.
direct.
I tend to be a little more...
Long-winded.
That too, yeah. Usually I'm not for lack of words, but beside that.
Got it. Okay, very cool. So let's talk a little bit about how you're involved in the community beyond the store. So you host at your place, you call it a Sunday soiree, right?
Right.
And is that a recurring event, or is that a one-time-a-year event? How does that work?
It is a monthly event. We start in September and we go typically to March because the festival season starts in April. It's a little harder then. So I was lucky enough. I'm a pianist, not a great one, but I play the piano, and I was able to acquire a Steinway about 15, 20 years ago That is, the Steinway piano is 110 years old.
Wow.
It is a beautiful instrument. I've restored it a couple of times, and it was actually in the Municipal Auditorium here in New Orleans, where the very first jazz festivals were played.
Oh.
So back in the 60s, Duke Ellington played this piano, Count Basie played this piano,
Yeah.
Dave Brubeck played this piano. So we own that piano, and it is in our home in the quarter. And a couple of years ago, as we were talking to some other folks that are very focused on supporting the music here in New Orleans, we said, you know what, there's not a lot of opportunities, whether you call them soirees or house parties, where musicians can come in and perform and make some good money. So we put together the soiree series, and we're going to be going into our third year this fall.
Wow.
And we invite people, and we've got quite a list now. Everyone that comes pays $30, and all the money goes to the musicians. Bob and I provide all of the alcohol, which we can get easily here. And I cook.
You know someone.
I know someone. We know someone, and I cook all the food. So it is something we enjoy doing.
And is it mostly jazz musicians or all kinds of different musicians?
Pretty much jazz,
Okay.
yeah. And we obviously expect that they have a pianist there. So, I mean, we've had David Torkanowski, Tom McDermott. We've had Evan Christopher perform in the house. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? So it is something that is separate from the wine store, but is really important to us. We have WWOZ on 24/7 pretty much at our house because we just love the music.
Is that a local jazz station?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right.
Very cool.
90.7.
All right. Just
But the issue is, New Orleans is changing. We won't know for many years whether it's changing for the better or for the worse or whatever. But you know, you can sit back and you look at the Treme, you look at parts of the Marigny, and it's becoming more gentrified. And here again, I'm not saying whether that's good, bad, or otherwise. But for Jane and I, the music culture of this city is part of the heartbeat that makes this city really work.
yeah.
I'm not going to discount the culinary scene or other such aspects, but it is the music of New Orleans that makes this work. So the real question that we have is, okay, so how can we support this scene in our own way, make a contribution, and have fun doing it?
Right.
And that's how we do the soirees, and it has just evolved in that fashion.
Makes sense. Bob's going to step away and take care of some customers. It is during business hours, so we're going to make sure that that everything's covered. Who's on your wish list? Who do you want to have come perform that hasn't yet performed?
We would love to have John Boutte
Okay.
at our home.
John, if you're listening.
Yeah, we just haven't been able to connect with him. DeVell Crawford would be fabulous.
Okay.
So yeah, we do have a wish list, and we'll work on that. And we're also looking to maybe do something. There's a recording studio right down the street called Luthgen Studio, one of the most famous studios actually in the country. And we've been talking with Rick Nelson, who is the owner of that, about how do we expand this soiree to actually maybe produce some music that people can buy and take home.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of
You could do live recording.
Right, exactly, with an audience.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe you can join us for one of those.
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my style of music is it's not what I would call jazz. I play a combination of blues and kind of like Texas songwriters.
That's
so
okay.
I call 50% Lennon Hopkins, 50 and Arlo Burnside, and 50% Townes Van Zandt and Guy Clark. So it's kind of like
Or maybe you can be our one non-jazz
there
performer.
you go.
Jazz is a very broad spectrum.
It is a very broad
Right,
spectrum.
right.
It is a very broad spectrum. But I mean, some of the stuff that we were talking about before we started rolling, I went to the Maple Leaf last night, and some of the stuff that people were doing on there, I was like, I'm just going to sit here and appreciate it, because I don't, a lot of times I understand what people are doing on stage. Not last night.
Well, the musical DNA in this city, goes back and really feeds everything that happens. I think even rap and other non-jazz musicians respect and honor the tradition that jazz was created here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Can you think? I mean, you've told me a lot of interesting stories about how you were, permitting and getting things ready. But can you tell me about a time when things went really wrong and you thought and then what did you do about it?
Nothing could have gone more wrong than the opening of this store.
Okay.
And it's a sad tale. The circumstances are, Jane and I, having come from our background, we stood up on the mountain and we put a banner into the soil and we said, okay, Grand Cru, French name, French wine, French city, when are we going to open the store? Bastille Day. And July 14th, we're going to open the store, roll back the curtains, and let the good times roll. Carl and Roy, our partners, left for a vacation to Jamaica on the 2nd of July. On the 3rd of July, their daughter was murdered.
Jesus.
And they came home attempting to put the pieces back together. After a day or two, we sat down with Roy and said to him, we said, Roy, what do you want us to do? We don't have to do this on the 14th. We can take some time.
Yeah.
Clear the cobwebs, pull some things back. And Roy actually sat there and said, I need something to do.
Right.
So let's make it. Let's do it. Let's open the store. And Roy has some of the most, I get upset, I'm not upset, but uptight when I talk about this story.
You get emotional.
I do. Roy has one of the most amazing support group of friends you could ever possibly imagine. So as we approached the 14th of July, you have 4 people who have no background in wine or spirits. We are 4 days from opening to the world.
With a lot of promotion.
With a lot of promotion, a lot of angst, a lot of anticipation. And on the 10th of July, 84 cases of liquid were delivered and put on the floor in the store. And now we have to put them on the shelves. We have to label them. We have to price them. We're sitting there with people who can't read Italian, let alone speak it. And where do you put this bottle? And how do we find on the invoice where the price tag is? And how do we mark it out? I mean,
So it was literally the day that Milan's, funeral planning happened, and Roy and Carla and 25 of their friends came here to help us put the wine on the shelves.
right.
And we have all these labels all spread out. We're drinking half the inventory that was delivered to us, but everyone's then trying to match the label with the wine and put it on the shelf and get the right price on. And it ended up being a real celebration. But it was very, very difficult, as you can imagine.
I bet. How long ago was that?
2015, July of 2015.
It'll be 4 years this July.
Right.
You have your 4th year anniversary.
Right.
Right.
Wow.
And all the wholesalers came to us and said, we can't believe you did it.
Right.
First off,
No, you blew everybody's mind.
Nobody-
Forgetting about Milan's murder, it was just that you guys had a date that you were going to open and you actually achieved it. And I was like, well, of course, that was an unexpected, horrible thing. But we achieved it.
so every year, Bastille Day brings a celebration to the store. And we do a 3-day celebration and we have fun. And here again, what is this store about? It's about having fun. So we do parties. People come in and rent this room out and do a birthday party, 12th night party.
Wedding.
What is 12th night?
When is 12th night?
No, what is
What is it?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm familiar with that.
I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's 12 days after Christmas.
It's the beginning of Epiphany, and it's the beginning of the Mardi Gras season.
Oh,
Okay, so it's a religious celebration that is now a major celebration in the city.
Got it, okay.
But yeah, we've had a wedding in the store, which was one of the coolest things we ever did.
Wow. Did you know the people?
Carla and Roy did.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that has evolved is Carl and Roy know everybody.
Yeah.
They do. And because of who they are and what they represent, people just sit there and go, well, we want to support the store because of you guys, because of what you brought. As we said, it's African American, and they bring a lot of African American clientele here.
Yeah.
But in our circle of people we know, I have African American people come in to buy in the store, and because they sit there and they look at us and they go, we love what you're doing so much, working with Carl and Roy. We have the only African American owned winery with an African American winemaker's wines on our shelf, and people support that.
We have relationships in the city. They have relationships in the city, and it brings a real diverse mix of customers and friends.
Yeah.
Then the tourists come in and they kind of feel that. They kind of, they, like you said, it feels elegant but yet comfortable. Those are the conversations that have been happening in the store, and the wine that's been consumed, and the fun that's been had. So, and then don't forget about Pearl and Deuce, the wine store dogs that add a great deal of color for every customer experience.
They participated in the podcast here before.
Right.
They are both pugs, right?
Both pugs.
One of them is the larger, kind of like blonde black nose variety, and the other one's full on black.
Right, fawn and black.
There you go.
Right.
Okay, I don't know much about pugs, but
the black one is the Black Pearl.
So, there you go.
And she greets every customer with a toy.
There you go.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like they were snuzzling up here to my boots just a minute ago. That's awesome. Tell me a little bit more about what your vision is. So we are coming up on your 4th anniversary, right? And a lot of time, effort, and soul has gone into putting this together. What do you see as the next 10 years? What do you want this to become?
I think 10 years is too long to think about.
5.
Thank you. Well, at some point, we speaking for myself, and I think I speak for Roberto as well. Every time we come here, we love it. We never say, oh gosh, we have to go to the store today. And all of the partners work the store. We have a full-time manager, Jay, who's a great part of our group. Brings his own character and personality and experiences as well.
And we have one part-time person and one volunteer.
Right. So we have a great crew. So we don't really have a line in the sand for when we may want to back out of the business, and Carl and Roy take more of a lead role. But at some point, that would probably that is the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 years would be the horizon that we take a look at.
Okay.
What is interesting is, and this was a little frustrating to me, because when we started this project, we sat there and said, okay, how much capital do we have?
Right.
Well, because we built this store out, we blew through that budget way long ago. Okay, how about getting the store up and becoming self-sufficient? We're just hitting that stride.
Got it.
And this is what's sort of fun about it. Because in the same token, it's talking about more people coming in, more sales, higher profits.
We're 20% ahead of where we were last year at this time. So that's kind of a cool thing. And because we've both been in business our whole careers, we measure metrics like that. Yeah, we want to have fun, but at the end of the day, you also have to run a business.
Sure.
And there's certain milestones and metrics that have to be measured to accomplish that.
And for a couple of years there, you're sitting there going, every month you're writing a check. You go, okay, another check, another check. So advice that I've learned through this: come well financed.
Yeah.
It's
the best way to make $1 million with a wine and spirit store is to start at $2 million.
Yeah, that's about it. But in reality, the horizon is always just a little bit further than you think it's going to be. I honestly thought 3 years and we would be breaking even. Well, we're now just hitting it at 4. Okay. So it's just taking a little bit longer.
It always takes a little longer.
And fortunately, Janie had a business. I have a business. We have some financial strength behind us. So the store's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
it has become, in the Marinade at least, it has started to become an institution.
Yeah, a destination, right? So, and then also, you do have a piano here. Do you ever have musical events here?
We
Not
do.
legally.
No, there you go.
We will have
Tell me more.
Well, again, because the Frenchmen St is so close, you need another license for live music. All right.
We're not a cabaret.
We're not, right.
Got it.
So we have people come in. We have customers come in and sit down and play sometimes, which is just unbelievably amazing.
Yeah.
But we will have someone playing the piano for our anniversary event. If someone has a private party here and they want to bring in a pianist or musicians, we encourage them to do that, because the piano here also has a story. And I know we don't have a lot of time left, but it is a good part of the store. And
What's the story of the piano?
so when I moved to Milwaukee after Katrina in 2005, I really brought nothing with me other than my business stuff, and I rented an apartment on Lake Michigan. And Milwaukee is very cold, very dry, and I had bought a piano because I couldn't imagine my life without a piano, which was silly, but it was something that I did anyway. And the piano here in the store is an Essex, which is also a kind of Steinway product. Mm-hmm. So being in this dry space in a heated apartment, after a couple years, 2008, the tuner came to tune the piano, and he said, "Jane, your soundboard is cracked.
Oof.
Steinway will replace this piano, no charge to you, no cost to you. That's their guarantee." So old piano goes out, new piano comes in, I play it. Fast forward, I get a humidifier. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to 2012, when we had already started working on this store. We had signed the lease, but we're still living part of the time in Milwaukee. Same tuner comes. He says, "Jane, this soundboard is cracked again. Steinway will replace this piano a second time, but this is it." Mm-hmm. And I said, "You know what, we're leaving Milwaukee." So when that box came with that piano and it was delivered, we immediately shipped the piano here to Grande. And when we opened, we had a brand new Essex piano, courtesy of Steinway.
There you go.
So
Steinway has not yet been on Small Business War Stories, but this will be the intro.
So when musicians play this piano, they love it, and that's great. It
and
adds.
You have a humidifier. Well, you don't.
No, we don't
need
need a humidifier in New Orleans.
Well, I don't know if the AC dries it out. Sometimes with guitars, the AC dries out the guitars.
Probably should.
Yeah, there you go.
Probably should.
Last one. There you go. Awesome. I mean, you talked about being well financed, but for a lot of our audience that is thinking about starting a small business or is currently running a small business, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give them?
I would say, because I also work with entrepreneurs, the number one piece of advice is to have a plan, to have your business plan put together with the financial projections, and focus on the fundamentals. I think particularly now with younger people, they think if they have a Facebook account and a good idea, that's all they need. But you have to have a written plan. Yep. You have to do a competitive analysis. You have to understand how you're going to drive your margins.
Okay.
You have to pay attention to details.
Okay.
It's the pennies and nickels here and there that really drive the profit when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
And that's Janie's forte. I mean, she accounts for every penny, every dime.
Yeah.
On one hand, I'm trying to give it away to charity, and she's trying to keep it in. But yeah, awesome. You have to look at that very carefully.
Okay. Do you want to plug in the initiative that you're a part of to help entrepreneurs, and what is the program that you're working with?
Sure. I'm actually a member of the New Orleans Angel Network, which is a group of 100 people that come together and make decisions about investing in startup companies. Those investments happen on an individual basis, but we have a process to work with startups and help them achieve funding. And then I do work with a couple of accelerators and the universities here to either teach entrepreneurship or work with entrepreneurs and mentor them.
Okay, very cool. What are any people want to find out more about those things? Where can they go?
So you can email me at redheadneworleans@gmail.com.
Okay.
Or you can call me, 504-330-0231, or you can come visit the store, Grande, 2305 Decatur Street.
There you go. And do you guys have a social media presence?
We do.
Okay, what are those handles? Where can people find those?
On our website.
Okay.
Grande with an E, Grande Krewe, KREWE.com.
Okay.
And then Pearl, our wine store dog, has an Instagram
There you
account
go.
as well,
What
which is
that?
Pearl at Grande Krewe.
There you
Pearl
go.
AT at Grande Krewe. So, yeah, we need a couple people to get to 100 followers, so that would be great.
There you go. We
Yeah,
will
that's
get
our
you
goal.
there with this
Okay.
episode. All right. Well, thank you, Bob and Jane. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your origin story here. And I wish you great success and look forward to come back and seeing you the next time we're in New Orleans.
So how'd you like that pinhook rye?
It was amazing. Yeah,
Okay.
you told us
All right.
about that. It's there were 8 or 9 musicians last night at the jam session. So I'm happy to report, or perhaps sad to report, that about 80% of that rye is gone. So
Well, good.
It's to be enjoyed.
exactly. Thank you so much. For
Thank
Thank you.
Take care. Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America.